Oh, we're live. Oh, man. It's been a while. Hope you're good. I got, what, 3 people in here? Shout out to the 3 people in here. That's fucking beautiful. Anyways, there's a topic going on in the world. Like, we all know that the LCU is kind of, on flames, but sometimes there's stuff that happens outside, right? Stuff that we need to pay attention to because it's going to affect, the world, definitely the country going forward. Hopefully nothing like this ever happens again. But COVID opened up a lot of eyes, and in the moment, it did seem like the right thing to do. But as things went on and on, it just seemed kind of unreasonable, so to speak. But anyways, we're going to get the show started. Let's do
it. Heavy crown.
Damn, good job.
Light slash, orange shadows crawl. Caint rules and will never fall. Heavy crown, heavy chains. King of chaos driving insane. Rise up, feel the grind. Twist the clock, lose your mind. Caint, he's the ruler of the faint. Caint, broke through the cafe, now unconstrained. Oh, he's the beast you wanna tame, standing tall with a 6'5" frame. Caint. Masked in smoke, crowned in flames. He whispers riddles, plays his games. Threads of gold burn in his grip. Truth gets twisted, it starts to slip. Run now, hear the call. Caint's kingdoms will never fall. Rise up, feel the grind. Twist the clock, lose your mind. Caint, he's the ruler of the faint. Caint, broke through the cafe, now unconstrained. Oh, he's the beast you wanna tame, standing tall with a 6'5" frame. Caint. Caint. Smoke, crowned in flames.
I love this shit.
He whispers riddles, plays his games. Caint, he's the ruler of the faint. Caint, broke through the cafe and now unconstrained. Oh, he's the beast you wanna tame, standing tall with a 6'5" frame. Caint.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Caint. As you know, my name is Ken, and I fucking Caint. So makes me wish I was younger. Shout out. But anyways, there's something going. Oh shit, I fucked up. Anyways, there's something going on in the world right now, right in the country, and a lot of people need to pay attention to this, right? I know not a lot of people will because they don't like getting into politics. They don't like talking about the bullshit, but basically, Dr. Fauci, right, the head dude during all of COVID, right, went in front of Congress yesterday, and they eviscerated this man. And all he did, I believe it was 115 times, he just repeated the same sentence. Something to the effects of, through the advice of my counsel, I respectfully refuse under my right to the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution. Literally all he kept saying. And they just fucking eviscerated this man. Big Show. Bam! Big Show member for 1 month. Caint Alliance. Spence intro song. Round. P.S. What it take for you to take a swig of the goat sauce they want for all? Bro, I'm not doing that. We're not doing that. Maybe. Anyways, back to the topic. So I got my notes together because I don't know how long this stream's going to be. Look, when we talk about this, I'm not trying to talk about politics. I'm not trying to persuade anybody. This was just a heavy moment in American history yesterday, in my opinion. because the dude, oh shit, Major's in the building. The dude that was responsible for all of this basically just shut the fuck up. And as people usually say, silence equals guilt. Now, can we say that? No, but we won't get into all that shit. Chubby Scorpion with the 5 gifted. Thank you so much, Chubby Scorpion. You're beautiful for that. If you guys got a membership, please thank Chubby. Danny got a membership. T-Berry, C-Drink, Death Metal Symphony, and Doobie Doo number 2. Thanks so much. I think it's going to play every single one, unfortunately. But for some odd reason, Streamlabs just can't, right? It just can't with the one, with the gifted members. I ain't figured that part out yet. So, but, we're going to let that shit play out. But anyways, look, once in the chat, if you even remember everything from COVID, right? Because it was such a fucked up part. I know there's some people that really don't remember it. And this is going to be beautiful, by the way. Doug Savannah, nothing for me. I'm sorry, Doug. You know what? Let me see something real quick. Let me see if I can snipe Doug real quick. I'm going to do this to myself, too. That's the best part. Oop. Let me come back here. Actually, yeah, fuck it. We'll go here. So, you know what's funny? I can actually give 10 memberships a month as owner of this channel, right? That's crazy. That's fucking crazy. But anyways, let's, I think there's one more. Yo, Ken, after this stream is over, I need a 3.5, please. I have no idea what that means, but thank you so much. All right. So, fuck, the gifted memberships. Oh, man, the sound. Y'all are going to fuck with me. I know you are, and that's okay. We got Seat coming through, and then we'll be beautiful. Yet Mazer's here, fucking Celtics. I hope you love playoff P, bro. Jesus. If y'all don't remember, right, let's go through a timeline of everything that happened. Now, I have notes I'm going to be looking at, right, and we're going to talk about it. And then we're going to look at parts of the actual Senate hearing because it's important for people to actually see what happened. And again, this didn't get a lot of coverage. No one really talked about this because, again, yesterday the world went on fire in a certain place, the LCU, and, it is what it is. But anyways, 2020, COVID begins. COVID-19 spreads globally and becomes a pandemic. We all remember that. And then Dr. Fauci becomes the one of the leading public faces in the U.S. pandemic response, right? Celtics over Lakers, fuck you, Fuzz. Appearing frequently alongside the White House Coronavirus Task Force, right? So this was all under President Trump to begin with. And it's one of these things that we haven't really seen in our lifetime, right? We really didn't see it. We didn't live it. And this was all brand new to all of us. So in the early days of COVID, I usually gave people the pass, right? As far as like what we're doing, the lockdowns, the masks and all that bullshit, right? Because again, we didn't know. But as time went on and more research was done, right, it got a little out of hand because it wasn't what everyone thought it was. Chubby Scorpion with the 10. Use this to buy some clippers and clean up that beard full. Thank you so much, Chubby. I appreciate it. I need to go back to the barber, actually. I do need to go back to the barber. But thank you so much, Chubby. I appreciate the 10. You're awesome for that. But anyways, and then the early controversies, public debate emerges over lockdowns, masks, school closures, vaccines, and changing the public health guidance. Questions also arose around the origins of COVID-19, including whether it came from a natural spillover event or a laboratory incident. Right now, as everyone knows, you may not know, there was the Wuhan lab in China, right? And then they were doing experiments with bats, and they were trying to do all this other shit. We're going to talk more about it in detail because this is some sick shit that came out. And the best part about all this too is motherfucker had a journal, and he wrote down all this shit in a journal, right? And I'm like, bro, why are you going to write this shit down in a journal if, this is going to happen, right? You're an idiot, right? You don't write this shit down because it's going to come back and bite you in the ass, but it is what it is. And then basically from 2021 to 2023, there was investigations already done by the congressional hearings, right? And then several committees began investigating the federal government's pandemic response. Lawmakers seek records of the NIH funding, communications with scientists, and decisions made during the pandemic. Republicans generally push for broader investigations into the origins of COVID-19 in a federal decision-making, while Democrats emphasize the importance of evaluating the overall public health response. So basically, you had one side of the coin wanting to know where it came from and what the fuck happened. The other side of the coin didn't really give a fuck, and they just want to, in their eyes, make sure people were safe, right? So it is what it is. And then from 24 to 25, right, documents, reviews, and they were going through all the bullshit. Examples were the federal funding of virus research, scientific discussions of the origin, public messaging during the pandemic, because if you're a federal employee, there's like a special messenger that all federal well, not all, but depends. You can chat with your department, right? And it's supposed to be encrypted and safe and all that shit. And then vaccine and mitigation policies. So that's just kind of what it is, right? And then we're here at the hearing. And then Congress calls Fauci to testify publicly under oath. Members question him about pandemic policies, NIH-related issues, previous statements that he already made, because he's done like 3 or 4 of these, I believe. And then the hearing becomes a focal point on the ongoing debates and accountability about COVID-19. Now, the dude leading the charge is a guy named Rand Paul, right? And we're going to look at Rand Paul so y'all can see what he looks like. Again, this is just what's going to happen, right? This is, where are we at? Where are we at? Damn it. I can't go to the screen. Good job, Ken. So anyways, this is what Rand Paul looks like, this dude right here, right? So Rand Paul, he's a senator, and he's also a physician. And the entire time, he's basically just said, this is all bullshit. Why are we doing this? You're going a little bit too hard. And he wanted to see the research. He wanted to look at what was happening, what was being documented, the results of the testing, and they basically didn't allow him to see it. And that's kind of where it all fucked up. And during COVID, he became one of the most outspoken lawmakers questioning the federal response. His focus was government authority, transparency, and accountability. Did you just fart? No, I didn't. No, you're right. One of these. So early on, while all this shit started and Fauci was doing his thing, his recommendations, all this other bullshit, Fauci challenged him on some things: the mask guidance, social distancing, public health decisions, and how much power health agencies should have. And his main argument was, were government policies based on available evidence? Now, y'all remember the mask policy? That was the biggest crock of shit I've ever seen in my life, right? One's in the chat. Did y'all wear masks? One's in the chat if you wore a mask. Now, I'm not going to shit on you, right? I'm not here to shit on nobody. If you feel you needed to do what it do for you, then that's fine, right? But isn't he, blah, 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 I can't say that word, Rocky, but yes. But anyways, he, sorry, let me back that up. When people went out and wear masks, a lot of times they'd have it like with their nose exposed, right? And they would just wear it on their chin, right? Like no one rarely wore it how it was properly supposed to be worn. And the other funny part about this is that people would say, if only one person can wear a mask, it doesn't do shit, right? 2 people have to be wearing a mask for it to really do anything. And people were like, what the fuck is this? Right? Like I remember very distinctively, right? This was when shit started opening in a certain place. I understand, Fuzz. Fuck you. So I remember very distinctively, right? Me and my wife, because we got married right before COVID in 2019. And then we went on our honeymoon in like late 2020, right? We went to St. Thomas because it started opening back up, right? And I remember very distinctively, right? We were on a boat, right? From St. Thomas to St. John. And we were at the top because no one could sit underneath because it was enclosed. And right, keep in mind, this is a boat, sailing at a pretty good speed with engines and all that shit. It wasn't just, riding the waves. And this old man wanted to take his mask off. And they were like, no, you have to keep your mask on. And he's like, why? Like, we're in the wind. I want some fresh air. I want, the wind there. Like, no, you have to keep your mask on. And part of me thought to myself, like, if we're going like, 25, 30 miles an hour in the open air, right? Let's just say if someone did or whatever, it's so microscopically hard to catch it at that point, right? And it just didn't make sense to me, right? And other than that, there's more you could really say on that, but that's beside the point. But, it was definitely one of those weirdest things, in my opinion. But again, so Rand Paul pushed questions about the NIH funding, coronavirus research, and gain-to-function research. Now, gain-to-function research is one of the weirdest things I had ever heard, and I had to look this up. And the Fauci supporters argue there's no evidence of the NIH funding caused the pandemic, right? That's kind of what Fauci's camp is saying. But, obviously the other side is saying, no, that's bullshit. We're about to prove it. And then basically at this point, why is it still being discussed? Well, Ron Paul argues that America deserves more transparency. Officials should be held accountable for pandemic decisions. And the critics wanted to say that the focus was on Fauci is too personal because they feel like he's attacking him. And the evidence does not show that Fauci caused the problem, right? So we're going to look at real quick gain of function research. There's a 2-minute video I found. There's a guy named Fuck Around and Find Out. It's actually a pretty funny dude. But this is just a short 2-minute video we're going to watch. Just kind of help explain. We're going to talk about it a little bit. So let's check this out.
I'm here today to talk to you about a certain type of research. Have you heard of gain of function research? What gain of function research is scientists will take a pathogen and they will genetically engineer this pathogen to make it more likely to cause a deadly worldwide pandemic.
Yep. Fuzz, real quick to that point. I've actually seen people by themselves in a car wear a mask. And I'm like, what are we doing? Right. Like, what are we doing, bro? You're by yourself. Like, don't get me wrong, right? There's people like the high risk and all that. Fine, I get it. But, you know, for people that are young and healthy and, you know, are not at risk, it's one of those things where it's like, you know, are you going to wear one to protect others or are you going to not wear one, right? It's weird. It's one of those weird, like, dichotomy arguments. It's kind of like, what's that, like, privacy versus security, because everyone doesn't want, like, the government in their business and they don't want, like people to know what's going on in their lives. But it's like, you know, according to the other argument, you know, the government's here to protect us. So the more and more you stay silent, the more the government can't protect you. It's like that whole argument. Like, we're not here to debate that, right? But I'm just saying it's kind of like that. That's kind of what I picture it as. But yeah, so here he's saying basically they take viruses and they manipulate them to a point where they can be infected in humans. So like, say if you have virus A that doesn't infect a human, they will alter it to a virus B, C, or D until it's able to make a human sick. That's what was happening. And this is what was happening in Wuhan, China. So let's continue.
This is called an enhanced potential pandemic pathogen. Enhanced potential pandemic pathogens don't occur in nature. They are made in laboratories by scientists who think that making a pathogen more likely to cause deadly worldwide pandemics is a good idea.
David S. Vingman with the member 5 months, Caint Alliance. Thank you so much, David, for keeping that membership. Lunchbox, hypochondriacs. Good word for that one. Good word for that one. All right. So as you can see, like he just said, these are lab made. These aren't natural. So it's like laboratories are trying to create illnesses to make people sick. That's kind of the whole point. Now, you could argue this is for vaccine research, whatever, what have you. Now, it's up to the people if that's what they want to, like, you know, see. But it's up to you to decide that. So let's continue.
Have you heard of the concept of fucking around and finding out? Well, gain of function research that creates enhanced potential pandemic pathogens is considered a very advanced level of fucking around. It's the kind of fucking around that can lead to a very high level of finding out that can affect all of us in a very bad way. Did you hear about COVID? Do you remember that? While it's difficult to prove, there's a lot of evidence that suggests that SARS-CoV-2, the virus that causes COVID, is an enhanced pathogen that was made by scientists fucking around in a lab.
And that's kind of what the whole big bullshit is, right? And here's what's funny, and this actually came out. The NIH was actually sending money to China and funding this whole entire experiment in the laboratory, right? So the argument is, you know, did the lab come up to standards, right? Is China standards the same as America standards when it comes to like public health and testing and all that shit, right? Is China standards the same as the U.S.? In my opinion, right? This is just this alleged, whatever you want to call it. Y'all hear about like the child labor, like in China, like the Walmart shit, and they're like making clothes and shoes and all that, bro. If that's true, they have like children in these factories working. I'm pretty sure their health isn't the same like standard, right? That's just my opinion. I could be wrong, but that's just my opinion. All right. So yeah, it's like he just said. They kept fucking around, and then they found out, right? The SARS leaked, and then this is what happened, right? So it is what it is. Sheeple will be sheep. Exactly, Chris. Exactly.
These enhanced pathogens that are being created in labs absolutely have the potential to cause another deadly worldwide pandemic, even far greater than what we saw with COVID.
Yep.
There's a new nonprofit organization called Biosafety Now. Biosafety Now's mission.
All right, that's enough of that. So y'all get the point. Y'all get the point of what this basically is, right? So gain of function basically is a studying how viruses change and gain new abilities, right? Science, they modified the viruses to study how they spread, how they infect cells, how dangerous they become, and how to develop treatments and vaccines, right? Now, the supporters' argument to this is helps researchers understand potential future pandemics, can identify dangerous mutations before they happen naturally, and helps prepare vaccines and medical countermeasures, right? That's the argument for it. The against it argument is it changes viruses in the lab that create risks, accidental release, like they say COVID was. A more dangerous virus can be created because sometimes shit just doesn't go the way you want it to. Sometimes shit just kind of happens and fucking it just kind of explodes and they're not ready for it, right? What are the precautions they're actually taking? And then poor oversight and safety failures. I mean, that anytime there's any kind of like catastrophe, like global catastrophe or any kind of thing, it's always poor oversight and safety. That's normally the number one thing people want to argue. So that's pretty much a given. Critics against some research have stricter limits. Well, I mean, there you go. Now, according to Rand Paul's argument, Paul questioned whether U.S. tax dollar money supported research that increased coronavirus capabilities. He focused on the NIH funding, EcoHealth Alliance grants, research conducted in the Wuhan Institute of Virology. God, I can't talk. And then whether officials were transparent with Congress, right? Because if you remember right back in the day, there were so many like congressional hearings and like task force creations and blah, blah, blah. That way there's going to be some oversight. And basically what people are saying is Fauci lied his ass off. Fauci was just in there to line his own pockets to fucking be the dude and all that other bullshit. Like I remember very distinctively, right? When all the politicians were on TV talking about getting the fucking vaccine, I was like, bro, there's no fucking way these fucking high level politicians are taking this shit and they don't know what the fuck is going to happen. Like, I'll be flat out honest with you. I didn't take the vaccine. I'm like, fuck that. I have my own reasons for it, which I'll get into in a little bit. My wife didn't even take the vaccine and she has her reasons, or we have our collective reasons together of why we didn't. But that's beside the point. Rocky BB, Ken, this separate research allows researchers to map the genome of the virus so we can understand the points of mutations that need to be watched for dangerous emerging mutations. There you go. Diogo, I miss COVID. It was great. The streets were empty, so peaceful. I went out every day and did my life normally. There you go, Diogo. You know what I miss about COVID? Gas prices. Bro, gas prices were like $1.60 a gallon, $1.70 a gallon. I'm like, this is beautiful. This is fucking beautiful, right? And then also like the hazard pay people got, which we'll get into all like the workmanship and all that. But again, bro, like it's one of those things. So Fauci's camp, in his response, Fauci argued that the NIH did not fund gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute under definition he was using. A major disagreement over what counts as gain-of-function, but we're getting to the science side of it. And then some officials and scientists use a narrow definition focusing on enhancing the dangerous pathogens. And we're going to get into all that vernacular bullshit. Caint streams are always go to no e-begging or fake shit. Bro, look, y'all ain't got to give me shit. This is a creative outlet for me. Anything y'all give me, I greatly appreciate. I truly do appreciate it, right? The tipping or whatever you want to call it. But I'm not here to do goals. I'm not here to fucking, I'm not like goals and humiliate myself and fucking like, I'm not here for that. That's not what this is, right? It's just kind of is what it is. And then the major debate to kind of sum it all up into one sentence, the argument was not simply whether scientists study virus. Everyone agrees they do. The argument was whether certain coronavirus experiments crossed the line into gain-of-function research, whether they were properly overseen, and whether officials were fully transparent about them. So that's kind of what this whole entire bullshit is about, right? Like yes, research needs to happen. We're not going to debate that, right? The leaps and bounds this country has taken medically as far as research is fucking insane. Fucking insane. And the best part is, right, they try to limit human testing, but on some levels they have to do human testing. They just have to. But, you know, it's one of those things. But anyways, so we can go over the guidelines. I mean, it's kind of like basically, you sat in your house, you shut the fuck up. There was remote, schools, which remote schooling for kids proved to be fucking bullshit. You know what I mean? Because, especially for like the younger kids, like kindergarten, like elementary school kids, right? It was damn near impossible for these kids to learn, right? And all they want to do is go outside and play and see their friends. I mean, that's what a kid's life's about, right? Just being a kid. And, being a kid got taken away from them. And it fucking sucked. It truly did fucking suck, right? But then the other people want to argue that a lot of times in elementary schools, that's how like viruses and fucking health and shit gets passed around because of, poor hygiene or, kids not knowing how to protect themselves, washing hands, picking noses, blah, blah, blah. We can get into all that. But so Rocky said, COVID changed my life forever. I'm never going to be able to go back to what my life was like before COVID. If I catch it, it will probably kill me. I'm glad y'all aren't impacted like me and my family. I'm sorry, Rocky BB, that fucking sucks. And again, right, here's the problem with the COVID. Well, not the problem, a reality, right? Every single family, every single person is going to affect them differently, right? And, normally whenever politicians or government look at anything, it's about the masses, right? And because no matter what you look at, no matter what law you pass, no matter what, there's going to be a group pissed off and there's going to be a group that's happy, right? It's just the nature of things. And I just hope, right, that, at the end of the day, everyone does what they need to do to protect themselves, what they feel is correct. You know what I mean? That's all I hope. Because, all we want to do is live a normal life. We want to just, go out about our day, do our normal routines, save up and go on a vacation every year. And then, if you have children, watch them grow up and become, men and women, ladies and gentlemen, whatever, and fucking move on, right? That's what life's about, But, this shit right here, it brought up a fucking lot. It's crazy. Hyde, what up, bro? Appreciate you. So, when it comes to politicians and the vaccines, we were talking about that earlier, right? So just to kind of put this into perspective, by late 2020, the conversation changed. The question was no longer, how do we slow COVID? It became, who should get the vaccine first? Should people be required to take it? And should the government have the authority to reinforce these decisions, right? That's kind of what it went into. So as far as like vaccine mandates, workplace requirements, military, school, we all know with the vaccine mandates, a lot of jobs, they had to do at least the first shot. And later on when they had the boosters and all this bullshit, they required booster shots, the military, literally, if you didn't get the vaccine, you were going to get discharged. That's just plain and simple. Luckily, I was already out of the military before this happened, but a lot of my buddies were still in. They were pissed the fuck off because they didn't want to take it. You know what I mean? And then, a lot of colleges required people to do it and they weren't doing remote learning. They had to fucking sit with the 6 feet in the desks and all that shit. Again, in the very beginning, I understood why, because we didn't know what the fuck we were facing. But the more and more shit that came out and the more and more research that was done, it's like, all right, this is like the common cold times 10, right? Or a flu times 10. I'm being vague. I don't mean that literally. But, back to me real quick. Here's the reason why I didn't take the vaccine. When I was in Fort Hood, Texas, about to deploy to Iraq, right? We got a swine flu vaccine, right? Who remembers swine flu back in the day in 2009 time period, right? W's in the chat if you remember swine flu. So swine flu was one of those things, and it basically kind of took over the world, and not really too much in the U.S., but like the world on a much larger scale. And since we were going overseas, they had to give us this vaccine. It's nowhere in our medical records, nowhere fucking even saying that we got it. But obviously all of us fucking remember it, right? And when we first got over there to Iraq, we had to be quarantined for 2 weeks, 2 fucking weeks, right? We had to be quarantined away from everybody else because they were looking at the symptoms. They were looking at changes, right? And I'm like, look, bro, if this is what we're doing, like I don't trust shit. I don't trust shit like from fucking any type of like government health. I don't even get the flu shot anymore. Like, fuck that. I'd rather build natural immunity. Chubby Scorpion, my wife got swine flu. It almost killed her. That's what I'm saying. Like, it was serious. It was serious. Don't get me wrong. But, I mean, in the military anyway, right? Fucking like this is a true story. You can actually get written up what's called an Article 15 or like a counseling statement, like, because there's counseling statements, article, well, I can get into all that. But anyways, if you get a sunburn, they can write you up for that and you get in trouble for it because you're property of the government. You're not properly protecting yourself. If you're out somewhere and you get dehydrated, if you're on if you're doing a field problem and you get dehydrated, they can write you up for that because you're not taking care of yourself. Like this is real. This is very much a real thing. So it's a lot. It's a lot. So, and December 11th, your cousin died from swine flu. I'm sorry to hear that shit. I really am. Like, here's the problem, right? When it comes to this type of argument, like I said before, families are affected differently. People are affected differently, and everyone's individual experience is personal to them. So certain topics are going to piss them off, right? And I totally get that. And like I said in the beginning, this isn't about politics. This isn't about like bullshit. This is about, a man that they're trying to prove lied to everybody. And their evidence is pretty damning. I'm going to tell you right now. And like I said before, he literally took the Fifth Amendment 115 times, right? He didn't want to say shit when he was already pardoned, right, by Joe Biden before he went out in office. But we're going to get into all that. So December 11th, FDA authorizes the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID vaccine for emergency use. So this is the first vaccine to really get approved, right? December 14th, the first Americans outside clinical trials began receiving vaccines. It was healthcare workers, nursing home residents, and high-risk individuals. High risk was like your elderly people, people with an autoimmune disease, people like federal government workers, depending on what they were doing, right? Like state government, any type of government worker, let's just say that. And then basically in December 18th, President-elect Mike Pence got it. And then Joe Biden got it on the 21st. And then Nancy Pelosi and Mitch McConnell got it a little bit around that time anyway. Catching up on 2X. Appreciate you, Jen. All right. So as far as the vaccine debate, right? That was my chair. As far as the vaccine debate, right? The arguments to support the vaccine were pretty fucking clear. Reduce serious illness, fast development through Operation Warp Speed, Warp Speed was the biggest crock of shit I've ever heard of in my life. Like, there's just no fucking way. Because I mean, like, let's put this into perspective. You're watching TV and you see these fucking commercials, right, for these fucking medications. And towards the end, when they're all dancing or happy or dogs running in the background, side effects include heart disease, diarrhea, chronic kidney disease, neck pain, joint pain, headaches, nausea, nosebleeds, ear bleeds. You see all this shit that fucking starts, and it's like, is it worth it? You know what I mean? Is it worth it? Fuzz with the 10. Shout out WStream. Thank you so much, Fuzz. I appreciate you, bro. So that's just kind of one of those weird things, right? So anyways, Operation Warp Speed. It's dumb. So real quick, the U.S. government invested billions to speed up vaccine development, right? So I didn't know that you could buy, speeding up a process. Because, oh, shit. There it is. Oh, shit. There it is right there.
At FuzzK7L donated $10 to support the KCA. Shout out WStream.
Appreciate you, Fuzz. Oh, shit. Let me fix my camera. There we go. So anyway, let me shut up. OCD. I didn't know you could pay to speed up things because, let's just say you have something and it takes, 5 days to look at the fucking outbreaks, right? Let's just say that. I didn't know you could drop $1 billion to go from 5 days to 2 days. I didn't know that, but that's beside the point, right? Keep in mind, we're also still fighting 2 wars that will 2020. I think we did still have Afghanistan at that point. I think we're pretty much done in Iraq. Hyde with the Canadian 5. Thank you so much, Hyde. You're beautiful for that. Thank you, buddy. Yeah, like I said, I'm not here to beg. I'm not here to do any of that shit. If y'all want to throw me a bone, I'd greatly appreciate anything y'all can throw me. I really do appreciate it. Danny with the 20. Damn, Danny. Damn, Daniel. Appreciate you, Danny. You're awesome for that. Thank you, Danny.
Danny.P909 donated $20 to support the KCA.
So, thank you again, Danny. So anyways, fast development through Warp Speed, right? So the government invested billions of dollars to speed up the vaccine development, right? Supporters argued the technology had been researched for years and funding removed delays in manufacturing and distribution. That's where the money went, right? If you want to believe that, I'm not here to argue. I'm not here to argue whether we believe that or not. We're not here to argue that. I'm just telling you what happened, or what was reported, right? So high groups. So that's kind of the other thing, you know, high fucking risk people, elderly people, healthcare workers, and people with underlying health risks. Supporters argued reducing transmission in severe cases protected vulnerable populations. Brother survived with the two. Comb your beard, bro. Yeah, I need to comb it. Actually, Alex, I need to go to the barber, bro. Fucking trim this shit. That's what I need to do. Here, let me do something real quick. Let me do something real quick. Yeah, this is a little out of hand. It's a little out of hand. I can't. Oh, no, I'm too small. Fuck. I'll fix it later. Anyways, all right. So the real world data after rollout, data show vaccinated people generally had lower rates of severe outcomes compared to unvaccinated people, especially before newer variants changed the landscape. So we all know, like, the original one, and there was the fucking Charlie variant, which I got to tell, homie looks like a Neanderthal. I mean, I am kind of Neanderthal. I told y'all, bro, you see the eyebrow? I'm a fucking Neanderthal. That's beside the point. Me and my wife actually caught Delta variant. My mom also caught Delta variant. And when we went to the doctor, right, they had the antibodies. We took in the antibodies to kind of help. And we were down for the count probably 5 days. I remember this very distinctively. Because I thought I was losing my sense of taste, because coffee, you know, y'all know I'm a coffee guy. I couldn't taste coffee. I was like, what the fuck? And because that was the first thing to go for me, was my sense of taste. And so I was like, oh my fucking God, man. Like oh my freaking God. I mean, because I was like, so I grabbed lemon juice and I just started chugging lemon juice. And I was like, yep, I'm fucked. That's it. But, you know, it is what it is. And then as far as criticisms and concerns, right, what changing the guidance created distrust, right? So if you look at it, everything was changing, and they were saying that, you know, as they learn more about the virus, they're going to have to change mandates. They're going to have to change like rules or whatever the fuck, right? So early messages changed over time as far as when it comes to mass vaccine expectations and boosters, and critiques argued changing guidance damaged public trust, because people were like, what are we doing here, right? Like, why are we constantly doing this shit? So what COVID did for a lot of people was bring out, do you trust your government, right? And I always say, America's the best country in the world. I don't give a damn what anyone says. I love being an American. Free speech, freedom to basically like the First Amendment rights, like freedom of speech, freedom of the press, right to petition. You know what I mean? Second Amendment, you know, carry arms. You know, the Fifth Amendment, which Dr. Fauci is very familiar with. You know, right to remain silent. It's beautiful, but you know, there's no one perfect. So a lot of the transmissions questions were coming up, like early messaging suggested vaccination would significantly stop the spread. Later, with variants like Delta and Omicron, all Greek letters, vaccinated people could still be infected and transmit the virus. Critics argued officials did not communicate uncertainty clear enough, right? I mean, think like any type of production, right? Let's just use ELC, for example. You see what happens on the camera, but you don't see what happens behind the scenes, right? This is just a very base level example. When it comes to this, you only saw what the politicians and everybody said in the camera. You didn't see what they were talking about behind the curtain, right? So, just saying. And then the vaccine mandate, should the government require vaccination? Should employees require it? Should schools and universities require it? And how much authority should government have during emergencies? So what I always said, right, and America is the third best country in the world, Mr. Ken. First is Portugal. Second is Ukraine, because look at them. They're fucking heroes. Third place is America. I always like you. Shout out, Diego. I appreciate you, bro. America, U.S. is a shit show. Outside looking in, I can see how people say that. So this is what I always said, right? And again, I'm not trying to spark some debate. I'm not trying to say like I'm right, people are wrong. But here's my thing, right? people want to argue women have the right to, like, both sides want to argue like abortion rights, right? So it's like if the same side that's arguing for women to have abortion rights is the same side arguing you should get the vaccine, right? You have to get the vaccine. This is better for America. You have to get this procedure. That always intrigued me. Like, why are we doing this, right? Why are we doing this? That's just how I feel. Oh, shit, Lunchbox with the 20.
At Lunchbox 682 donated $20 to support the KCA. The U.S. military was still in Afghanistan in 2020 with the February agreement with the Taliban. The troops were slowly getting pulled out. There was still a troop presence in Iraq fighting the remnants of ISIS and in Africa.
Shout out Lunchbox. Thank you for that, buddy. Yeah, like I said, I got out of Iraq in 2010, and they were starting Operation, what was it, Enduring Freedom, I believe. Because I was in during Iraqi Freedom, and they were in Enduring. I can't fucking remember. My brain is smush right now. All this fucking research. But anyways, that's beside the point. So the side effects and safety concerns. Well, I'm going to say this real quick. My wife decided not to get the vaccine because we were trying to get pregnant. And there was zero research on if it would affect fertility. Zero. So we were like, it's probably best we don't do this. It's probably best. So we wrote it out. And I'm happy. I am happy. So side effects and safety concerns raised questions about myocarditis, especially in younger males, rare adverse effects, long-term safety questions. Health officials responded that serious side effects were rare and that monitoring systems were in place. How do you know? How do you know what the side effects are? Because this bitch just rolled out in record speeds, right? They didn't know, in my opinion, but that's just me. The speed of approval. Some question asked, was it developed too quickly? What were the long-term side effects? Supporters responded that the emergency approval was based on large clinical trials and continued monitoring, right? Natural immunity debate. Some critics argued that people who recovered from COVID had immunity that should have been concerned, right? Again, we got the Delta variant. And those people I know that got the vaccine, that got COVID multiple times. Now, there's a million factors that could go into that. I only caught it once. My wife only caught it once, right? But again, I'm not here to debate the validity in that. I'm just going off my experience. I'm just going off my experience and what I saw. That's all I'm saying. And then obviously public health officials debated how strong and long-lasting natural immunity was compared with the vaccine. So how does this all come back to Rand Paul and Fauci? So Rand Paul's criticism was heavily focused on government overreach, transparency, whether officials overstated certainty, and whether mandates went too far. So Fauci's supporters said decisions were made during a rapid changing emergency, recommendations involved as new evidence emerged, and the vaccines prevented many serious cases and deaths. All right. Now, before we get to, you got it 2 times? Damn, Doug. Damn, Daniel. Fuck. That sucks. So, Dr. Fauci got pardoned right before Joe Biden went out in office. That was one of the last things he did. Let's look at why. Let's check this out.
A cordial greeting from President Biden on the doorstep of the White House. As the incoming and outgoing president and first ladies posed for photos, the icy wind blew a flag in the face of a Marine, almost knocking off his hat.
Good job,
like
buddy.
a true Marine, he just carried on.
Damn
Dr.
right.
Jill and First Lady Melania shared a card to the Capitol, followed by Presidents Biden and Trump. Biden's last minutes in office delivered a bombshell. As the inauguration ceremony was about to begin, the White House announced unprecedented All
right, let me slow this down real quick so we can all hear it together.
preemptive pardons for Biden's siblings. including brothers James and Francis, sister Valerie, and their spouses, who have all denied allegations that they used the Biden name to enrich themselves.
Of course.
They have been subjected to unrelenting attacks and threats motivated solely by a...
Here we go.
Members and staff of the January 6th committee.
President Trump responded by text. It is disgraceful. Many are guilty of major crimes.
They pardoned a lot of people.
And he denounced the pardons just minutes after taking the oath of office.
Why are we helping Liz Cheney? I mean, Liz Cheney is a disaster. She's a crying lunatic.
Biden is leaving office with an approval rating slumping to 37%.
There you go.
It is not my nature to go quiet.
I'm not here to argue that. I'm not here to say anything about that. This is just the facts.
Into the night.
But Vice President Kamala Harris is making it clear she will continue her political career. Staff cheered as...
By the way, she's running in 2018. Just wanted to put that out there. So, if you were a Kamala supporter, you'll be able to vote for her again. So basically, there was a lot of people pissed off at the whole thing with Fauci, right? There was a certain clip in here. I should have prepared. I'm sorry, but anyways, I'll tell you what happened. That's my bad, guys. That's my bad. So, on January the 19th, President Biden issued a full and unconditional pardon to Dr. Fauci. The pardon covered potential federal crimes related to the NIAID, which is the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, his role on the White House Corona Task Force COVID-19 response team, and his role as chief medical advisor to the president. Why was he pardoned? Biden said public servants were facing threats of politically motivated prosecutions, and the pardon was meant to protect them from what he described as unjustified legal actions. Did I say 2018? Fuck my life. 2028. Fuck my life. I'm sorry, guys. My bad. We're talking about the past. My brain's in the past. I apologize. 2028, she's running for president. Why did it become controversial? So the pardon before charges were filed raised questions and why it was necessary. So there was no talk of charges. There was no talk of, criminal activity yet. Obviously, there were critiques over what was happening, right? But in politics, there's always critiques in fucking politics. But people are like, have I entered another plane? Yeah, fuck my life. Boomer Report, you know what? Just for you, Bilal. You got it, bro. Just for you. 2018, everybody. Kamala Harris. All right. Let me get back. All right. So people are like, why are you giving him a pardon if no criminal charges were filed? That raises a lot of questions. And then they argued that people argued that it created the appearance that officials might be protected from future investigations. But supporters would say that it protected a longtime public health official while they viewed as what they viewed as politically motivated investigations, right? So it just kind of is what it is, right? And then the pardon adding another layer to the ongoing debate. Supporters saw it as protecting a public servant, while critics saw it as a reason to ask many more questions about accountability and transparency. Now, let's get it. So, your ears, my bad. I'm sorry. Headphone warning, the Boomer Report is coming. So, there's two websites, right, that are very public. This is the reading room, right? This is a .gov. And then this is basically the diary, because they basically collected a 465-page diary of Fauci's own historical records, right, if you want to look into it. And then what he wrote privately versus what he said publicly. There's all the stuff here. This is all public record, all right? All of this shit is public record. And then the other one is a FOIA request. And obviously now I can't reach the fucking website. But anyways, it's a link to the library of all like the bullshit they had, both sides arguments, because for every, congressional hearing, it's all public, right? It's all public domain, whatever, right? So on the website, the full entire testimony of Anthony Fauci is right here. It happened yesterday at 8:30 p.m. in this building. All right, in this building, room, whatever the fuck, right? And it's all just Anthony Fauci, former director of the NIAID, NIH, USD, HHS. Fuck my life. All right, so Let's get it. Let's get into this motherfucker. So obviously we're not going to watch the whole thing because the whole thing is fucking 3 hours long, right? We ain't got time for all that. But we're just going to look at some key points, right? These are some key points. So first thing we're going to look at, fucking move the fucking thing. This was Fauci's opening statement, all right? This was Anthony Fauci's opening statement to the congressional hearing, all right? This is where we're going to start. Let's check it out.
Member Peters, members of the committee, I served at the NIH for over 54 years, 38 of those as director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases.
No shit. Thank you, buddy.
Over that period, I proved that I believe in and respect the value of legitimate congressional oversight.
No, you don't.
In fact, I testified before and or briefed Senate and House Senate and House committees well over 200 times over those 38 years.
Thank you, Fauci. I appreciate you.
During and after the COVID pandemic, I have appeared multiple times for hearings in the Senate and the House, usually under oath, and sat for several days-long transcribed sworn interviews answering questions about the very issues that are now the subject of this hearing.
Now, you did all this shit before. What changed? What changed, Dr. Fauci? You talked about it. You were in magazines. You had photo ops. You were fucking writing books. You were writing articles, right? Scholarly articles, right? For students to read. What changed? Why today of all days you can't, right? Because Fauci can't at this point. That's what it boils down to. What people are saying is that this is a witch hunt by fucking Rand, right? Rand Paul. This is a witch hunt. And, you know, hindsight's always 20/20, as they always say. You can always look back and say, damn, we fucked up. But remember, he's already been pardoned. So since he's already pardoned, right, he can't be convicted of anything. What they're trying to get him on is perjury, lying under oath. That's what they're trying to get him on. And who gives two shits answers? Who gives two shits? Exactly, Lady Talks. Exactly. All right, let's continue.
However, given Senator Paul's obvious obsession with calling for my prosecution, his repeated slanderous comments about me, and recently his publicly releasing my unredacted personal diary.
Now, fuck. Unredacted, right? Think about this. Whenever the government drops documents, whenever, like, look at, what the fuck's it called? Project Blue Book. I think that's right. Someone fact checked me. Blue Book on the UFOs, like from like the 50s, right? Roswell and all that shit. Who's taller, you or Fauci? I'd give him a couple inches taller. Oh, God. I'm never going to live that down. I'm never going to live that down. That's beside the point. Unredacted, right? That means thoughts, opinions, talking shit about people, praising people. They can compare what he said on camera versus behind the scenes. All that shit redacted. And him being a high-level official, especially during like the COVID time, motherfucker had or some sort of clearance, right? Top secret, probably, because of what was happening, obviously during COVID and all that. And they didn't, you know what I mean? All that shit is on that website to see. I showed you guys. So if y'all are bored of anything happening else in the world, you want to see some bullshit, check out the diary. Check out the diary, or the journal, I'm sorry. Wasn't it like, I remember when I was a kid, right? Girls wrote in diaries and boys wrote in journals. That's what I was told as a kid. You're right on. Project Blue Book. Thank you, Lunchbox. Yeah, like girls writing diaries, boys writing journals, right? That's what I was told as a kid. Ken's definitely shorter. Thank you, Fuzz. Let's continue.
Aimed at embarrassing and intimidating me, the only conclusion I can reach is that the sole reason he is calling me before this committee is to get me to say something, anything that could vindicate his repeated public pledges that I end up, in his words, quote, behind bars,
Ooh,
unquote.
dun, dun, dun.
Any reasonable person who has followed his unhinged obsession with me.
So I want y'all to take notice about something, chat. A lot of people were saying he was nervous, right? His hands are just shaking, fucking shaking. Now, that could be nervous. That could mean agitation. That could mean, why the fuck am I here? It could mean a lot of things. But people are like, if you have nothing to hide, if you're telling the truth, right? Why are you shaking? It could be a disease he has that obviously that's his business. You know, Omar, Ken is 6'5". Thank you, Omar. I appreciate you. It could mean anything, but people were just saying, why is he shaking? But again, I think that's reaching at this point. I'm just saying what people were saying, right? But I think it's reaching at this point. Let's continue.
Would readily come to the same conclusion.
Chudster, what up, bro?
Therefore,
now, what he's about to say right here is the rest of his remaining words. What he's about to say right here.
although it pains me to do so because of the respect I have for the legislative branch of government and my decades-long record of cooperating with Congress, under the advice of my attorneys, I will invoke my right under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution to refrain from answering your questions. Thank you.
Boom. Boom. All right. It's over. Now, I have a question. I should have done this before the stream, but I didn't. I want to look at the exact terminology. Now, the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution guarantees 5 key rights: protection against self-incrimination, the right to a grand jury, protections against double jeopardy. It also ensures due process of law and fair compensation when private property is taken. We ain't worried about that. So self-incrimination, you do not have to testify or answer questions that can make you look guilty. This is known as pleading the fifth, or the right to remain silent. And then we got grand jury, double jeopardy, and all that shit. So what a lot of people were saying is that this wasn't a criminal, this wasn't really a criminal investigation because he's already been pardoned. So he can't be charged with anything. The only thing they could truly get him on is if he lied under oath when he did the 3 or 4 other fucking congressional hearings. That's all they can get him for is perjury. So people with a pardon, why did he plead the fifth? That's what I'm saying, Beezer. Because like, this is just a very base level bare bones example. Let's say in one hearing he said the sky is blue. The next hearing he said the sky is red, right? Perjury, because he said 2 different things under oath 2 different times. Now, obviously that's, no one would really take that seriously. It's just an example. But anyways, so all that happened, and then they truly begin like grilling him, right? And why are you not moving? There you are. All right. So there's a few like key things that I want board members that talk to him that I want to like show, and just to kind of bring it in. Now, obviously, there's both sides of the coin, right? Democrats and Republicans. The thing is, I don't want to turn this into like a political debate. I'm not here for that. I'm just here to show y'all what's going on in the world and why this is important to pay attention to. All right, that's all I'm here to show y'all. So Senator Johnson, we're going to start with him and what he did or what he showed. All right, let's get into Senator Johnson. God, I hate that name. All right, let's get it.
Why you needed a pardon. I certainly understand why, on the advice of counsel, you're not answering any questions, because I think it would be almost impossible for you to answer the questions truthfully without really demonstrating what you did, your culpability, self-incriminating.
Yep.
We have, all of us has prepared a lot. I've been deluged with questions to ask Dr. Anthony Fauci that there are so many legitimate questions that deserve answers, and now you're not willing to provide those answers. So with my limited time, I'm going to talk about things that my investigation revealed.
Now, keep in mind real quick, right? All these senators that are on this panel right here, they all have aides, like 2 or 3 aides, probably 1 aide, whatever, right? These motherfuckers did so much research into his diary, into his emails, because all the emails also came out, right? They did so much fucking research. And this dude, Fauci, is refusing to answer any questions. Now, the shit that comes out about what he was involved in is insane. Fucking insane. And I'm just saying this. Me personally, unfortunately, my friend, this is a political topic. So to that, this is what I'm going to say, Doug. And I appreciate you saying that. And I appreciate all opinions here. Y'all know that. What I'm saying is, if this happens again, right, knock on wood, right, we never deal with this again. Before just listening, do your own research. Understand what's really going on, okay? Because in my humble opinion, this is just me, there was a lot of fear-mongering. There was a lot of doomsday, right? There was a lot of situations everyone put out to make the country like in huge fear. And it showed the government what they need to do to make the country just be at their becking whim. That's what this showed. And all I want to show here is that there is people bringing all this shit out into the light. And I want people to see this so that way they know, right? History doesn't repeat itself. And people do their own research before making decisions. That's all I want to do. I appreciate the comment, Doug. I truly do. But this is all I want to do, okay? Let's get it.
That have not been adequately answered and quite honestly haven't been adequately covered by the legacy media. I'll kind of combine the questions into kind of one, but you know, I certainly, let's put up the last COVID chart. I was warned pretty early on about the dangers of the experimental gene therapy that you've called a vaccine, but it really falls under the definition of gene therapy. So I was going to ask you, I mean, were you carefully monitoring the safety surveillance systems like VAERS and vSafe that literally were deluged with complaints? You know, currently, worldwide, there have been almost 1.7 million adverse events reported to the...
Now, what they're trying to show here, the daily death toll did that. What they're... oh, Rocky, I remember New York City. That whole thing was fucked up. That whole thing was fucked up. I mean, in New York, they literally had like 18-wheelers, right? They were just throwing people in. There was so many fucking dead bodies. And they had big-ass burn pits like this was the fucking Black Plague or some shit. They were just burning fucking people, man. It was just so fucked up. And I remember this situation, right? And there was a grandmother sick. And they refused the family, right, to go in there to say their last goodbyes to her, right? I'm like, look, bro, I don't give a fuck who you are. I don't give a fuck what's happening. If my yaya, that's Greek for grandmother, if my yaya is on a bed and she's about to go, there's no stopping me. There's no stopping me. I'm going to go see my fucking grandma, right? That shit broke my fucking heart for that family. It was so fucking sad. And, you know, my great-grandmother and grandmother had already passed on before all this. So, you know, I didn't experience that, right? But that, and then you see pictures, right, of like I saw this one thing on X where like there was a dude and they had a bunch of like plastic over him, right? And the only way he could like hug his grandkid or his kid was through plastic. And I'm like, come on, bro. What the fuck are we doing? The fuck are we doing? But anyways, so this chart is showing, right? We got 30 years, 35 years. These are just different, you know, things that happen, right? Reasons for people dying and just COVID vaccines versus everything else, right? Everything else. And it's just astronomical. And they want to know why. What happened? Because you got 30 years, 35 years, 36 years, right? 57 it looks like. But yeah, this is just, yeah.
The VAERS system. Of those, over 39,000 were deaths. And of those deaths, 24% occur on the day of vaccination within 1 or 2 days. 24%, which by the way just happens to be the same percentage that a Rasmussen poll pointed out the American public believe 24% of the American public believe they know somebody who died of the experimental gene therapy.
Yep. So they're saying here, death days after getting vaccine, 1 to 2 days. There was not 1,300 deaths, 23% of all of COVID, right? Whenever they got the vaccine, 1 to 2 days, they died. That's what they're trying to show here. Like, what are we doing?
Again, I was certainly interested in asking you whether or not you were following this as carefully as I was. It was not my responsibility to follow safety surveillance systems, but I did. And by the way, when I published, this is actual government information. When I published it and people had me on their shows, they would be censored by Facebook. They would be deplatformed. I think largely at the behest of the actions you took to make sure that disinformation wasn't spread. This wasn't disinformation. This was the truth. So I was going to ask you whether you knew Dr. Marks. I think you do know him. He's the head.
So real quick, bro, YouTube, man, you couldn't talk about this shit on YouTube. I think it was like a year or a year and a half ago. They finally lifted it so you could say COVID. Because I know people used to say like the C virus, right? Or, the pandemic or some other shit, right? Because they didn't want misinformation getting out, right? And these are like, billion-dollar corporations. I mean, you've had the YouTube CEO, Facebook CEO, Google CEO in front of congressional Congress, right? Doing shit about like privacy and information getting out and all that other shit. It's crazy to me. It's just pure crazy to me. But, freedom of speech, right? Just saying. All right, let's get it.
He's the man who's in charge of approving vaccines and surveilling for the safety. My investigation shows that on March 1st of 2021, less than 3 months after the emergency use authorizations, he was warned by Dr. Anna Scharsman, data mining expert, that the algorithm they were using to analyze VAERS data was going to hide in mass safety signals. 26 days later, and 3 months consecutively after that, they did data runs with a new algorithm that unmasked those safety signals. They showed dozens of safety signals, including sudden cardiac death, cerebral artery occlusion, basal ganglia stroke, agonal rhythm, Bell's palsy, and pulmonary infarction. Your diaries now show that you actually suffered pulmonary infarction in, I think, probably June 2021. I was just wondering whether it ever went through your mind that maybe that injection, all those boosters you took, might have caused that. And the question I was going to, and I'll ask this question, were you ever made aware of the fact that Peter Marks was warned that the algorithm was going to hide the safety signals? And were you told that senior FDA officials were given shown dozens of safety signals associated with the COVID injection?
All right. So basically what he's trying to say is, there's probably like there's underlying health risks that we didn't know about that the vaccine was going to affect, right? And what the initial algorithm basically shielded a lot of those. That way they got certain amounts of data, right? Because I'll tell you right now, like what I went through, like my master's degree, right? I had to take like analytics and statistics classes. What I learned, you can take any group of data and manipulate it to say whatever you want. And that made me look at shit so much differently whenever they have like polls up, or when they have like, like we looked at this data and this is what we came up with. You can manipulate data in any type, right? It's just fucked up. Rocky BB said, how many of those people already had COVID when they got the vaccine? So if I remember right, they actually were supposed to ask you, because if you already had COVID, you weren't supposed to get the vaccine. I could be wrong, but I think I remember that. And I remember the language they came out and they said, right, the vaccine doesn't deter COVID, right? It's not going to stop you. It's just going to reduce the risk, right? Now, don't get me wrong. If I was 85 years old and I had lived my life, Ken, that was an exchange we made for speed. There you go. If I was 85 years old, I lived my life or whatever, and this thing happened, would I have gotten it? Still probably not, but my wife would have probably made me get it. Let's just be honest. But, at the time, right, I was in my early 30s. My wife was still in her 20s. Like, I think it was like 28 or 29. And we were like, no, we're not. We're good. To be frankly honest, too, if someone else could use my vaccine, let them use it. But I was never going to get it to begin with. My wife was never going to get it to begin with. Because, again, no fertility research, because that's important to us, right? And we're still going through that process now, right? It is what it is. And for me, after the swine flu vaccine bullshit from now, no. They can keep all that shit. Like, I'm good, bro. So let's keep it going.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
That's his answer.
Next area I want to go through is in that same month of March 2021, an employee at NIH, Dr. Nath, led a team of researchers who were diagnosing and treating individuals who never had COVID but were severely injured by the genetic therapy injections. Dr. Nath told those individuals, stay quiet. You know, we want to make sure that we gather all the information and then release it to doctors so they can treat people like yourself. There was a concerted effort, and I'll enter this in the record. It appears inside NIH to quash Dr. Nath's publishing that study. It finally was put on a preprint server telling no one, and I think about May of 2022. I think what's noteworthy about this is Dr. Nath told the injured participants that early treatment, early intervention was crucial for them to be treated. And yet within the NIH, they were questioning what was Dr. Nath doing. They didn't want to publish that because, and I want to take time searching for it, because publishing it would create vaccine hesitancy.
Now, think about that. According to Senator Johnson, he's saying that when the initial trials were happening and the initial people got the vaccine, they were looking at them, seeing what was happening with them. And they had a lot of issues. They had, like health issues that came up that the vaccine caused, but they were told to shut the fuck up, right? That's the weird thing about this. If the government tries to silence you, there's a problem. That's how I feel. Now, you could argue there are certain instances where people need to be silenced, but I like to argue we have freedom of speech. No one should be silenced. If there's an experience someone went through, people have the right to tell their story. I don't give a fuck what it is. You have the right to tell your story. Now, validity of that will always be in question, right? No matter what story you tell, I mean, you can look at legal cases. You can look at, people saying shit that happened to them that, people were never caught or whatever, right? There's always going to be the validity of it. But the fucked up part is if they did come forth, the government could just say, yeah, they're lying, yeah, this, yeah, that, or they could have them arrested for whatever the fuck, sign an NDA and move on about your life, right? It's just all fucked up. No matter how you look at it, it's fucked up. Rocky, Ken, you have to look at the p-value for the data you're being shown to see if the numbers are statistically significant. You can't game that. Yeah, I get that. I'm just showing what was talked about, right? Facebook isn't the government. Yeah. But Facebook and YouTube were shut down from speaking, right? People couldn't really say shit, right? Omar. Thank you, Omar.
Adam Martewire donated $10 to support the KCA. I grew up in the 60s, and with everything that was going on, we learned quick not to trust the government. Does anyone remember the men they gave vaccines to that they were actually injecting with VD?
Yep. So if I remember right, that's when it was a lot of like a low income people, if I remember right. And they were giving the low income, predominantly black people, injecting with like VD, but they said they were vaccines. If I remember right, I think. I could be wrong on that. That's what I think it is. But anyways, thank you for the 10, Omar. I appreciate you. So again, going back to Rocky BB's point, like, this is just information that's put out, and Dr. Fauci's not saying anything to it, right? So some people would say silence is guilt. Silence is saying that you don't want to rebut anything or whatever else. Fauci is saying that he doesn't want to be held under perjury, or he don't want to be a part of this witch hunt, so he's just not going to say anything. It's up to people to believe who they want to believe. But what they're showing is their version of statistical data to back up that there was some foul shit going on. That's what this is. So let's continue.
Which is what we continue to hear time and time again, is the reason they didn't promote they lied about the safety signals they were seeing. Throughout the pandemic, I always push early treatment. We've got things in here where you were really concerned about remdesivir because it was untested, but hydroxychloroquine, yeah, it was an approved drug. Maybe some safety issues, but we had a great deal of experience with it. All of a sudden, you had the Surgisphere study. It was retracted within 2 weeks because it was completely false. Totally blew up the use of hydroxychloroquine. And then when it comes to ivermectin, which, by the way, because I was contacted by so many people, I referred them to doctors who actually had the courage and compassion to treat vaccine-injured individuals. It works. But I was...
Oh, Tuskegee. Yes, the Tuskegee Airmen. I remember that. Okay, sorry. I'm thinking of something else then. I'm sorry. But yeah, the Tuskegee Airmen, that whole situation was fucked up.
I'm going to ask you whether you were involved in the FDA attack on ivermectin. You had a interview on CNN on August 29th of 2021, where, again, I just don't want to take time to find the exact quote, but said there's no evidence. There's no evidence that ivermectin is helpful. On that exact same day, and I've got the studies right here. There was a website that was tracking the random controlled studies. Here they are, showing 60, 70% efficacy of ivermectin. The same day you say there's no evidence, there was all kinds of evidence. Loved ones had to go to hospitals, had to sue hospitals. Just, would you try it? So I would want to know, to what extent were you involved in sabotaging hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, and
We already know what
did
his
you do
answer's
that
going to be.
because you knew
I'm going to move on after this.
the only way you get emergency use authorization for these drugs, these experimental gene therapy, was if there was no effective treatment, you couldn't get the emergency use authorization. So is that why you...
Adam Dwyer donated $5 to support the KCA, giving our military members LSD testing it as a truth serum.
Yeah, it's fucked up. And we all know what fucking Mustache Man in Germany did in the 30s with with LSD to keep them amped up and fucking a type of meth, right? So they didn't have to go to sleep and keep fighting. It's fucked up. And just like I said, right, they gave us the fucking swine flu vaccine and it was nowhere in there, bro. It's just dumb. Rocky BB, I haven't seen data about that ivermectin being helpful. Look for peer-reviewed studies and give you information about them. Yeah, well, you always want to go through peer-reviewed. You don't want to go off a Google account, but that's beside the point. So, anyways, we get the gist of what he's saying. So we're going to move on to this dude right here, Senator Scott, if I remember right. Is this Senator Scott? No, I'm sorry, no, Senator Hawley. That's what I wanted to look at. Senator Hawley really goes in on this dude, like bad. And the funny part is, senators that were in favor of Fauci, they made a statement and that was it. The people opposed to Fauci were the ones with facts. They were the ones showing things. They were the ones with the placards and or the boards, right, with information, asking him questions about information, and it never came back up, right? Or he refused to answer. But people that were on his side didn't ask him any questions. So I just want to put that out there. So this is Senator Hawley asking my man some questions. He's not my man, sorry. All right, let's get to it.
Shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. Thank you for your service, Dr. Fauci. I yield back.
Senator Hawley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, nothing says honesty like taking the fifth, huh, Doc? Let's try something. What day of the week is it today?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon
He's
my rights
smiling.
under the Fifth Amendment to the
Did you see
Constitution.
that?
What color tie are you wearing?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
What color's the carpet in front of you?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Let's just get one thing straight. You don't have any rights under the Fifth Amendment because you've been pardoned, as you very well know. As the Supreme Court has been clear for a century and more, Brown versus Walker, 1896, when he has been pardoned, he may not stand upon his privilege.
Yep.
You know that. Your lawyers sitting behind you now shifting nervously in their chairs. They know it. This isn't about the Constitution. This isn't about the law. This is about contempt. Contempt for this body and contempt for the American people. But I think I know why you're doing it. It's because you don't want to answer questions. It's because you did all kinds of terrible things. It's because during the pandemic you got rich. Didn't you?
So real quick, Rocky BB with the two, calling NRA vaccine gene therapy is evil. Yes, it is. Gene therapy is a whole other thing. But yeah, so as you can see, Senator Hawley just asking him basic ass questions, right? You know, what day of the week is it? What color tie are you wearing? What's the carpet color, right? That have nothing to do with what's going on. But he's proving a point that Fauci is not going to answer any questions. Now, earlier, Rand Paul actually kicked out one of his attorneys because the attorney was going off on Rand Paul. And, you know, the way this works, you wait until you're called upon. And then when you're called upon, you can see what you need to say. But Fauci's attorney just kept going off and disrupting and all that. So he got taken out. But obviously, Fauci has a team of lawyers there, right? And they're advising him. And again, all Fauci's doing is just reading, you know, his little thing, you know, under the advisement of my attorney, I'm exercising his Fifth Amendment rights, whatever. But again, Hawley's saying you were pardoned, right? So no matter what, you can't be charged with anything. So you can't really use this, right? You can't use the Fifth Amendment because it doesn't apply to you. But this is all Fauci is doing. This is I'm not going to say a waste of time, but this was a very short version of what the American people deserved answers to. That's all it was. So, but again, he's refusing to give the American people these answers.
You got rich while people were dying, hundreds of thousands of Americans, over 1 million in the end, and you were getting rich. And not only were you doing that, you were using federal employees with taxpayer money to apply for and solicit cash prizes for you personally. Cash prizes totaling over $1 million. You did all of that during the pandemic, didn't you? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
You remember Greg Folkers? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Your chief of staff is the answer. Do you remember Patricia Conrad? Who was that?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
She was your personal assistant. And what were these individuals doing in the depth of the pandemic in November of 2020 when millions of Americans were suffering from COVID? What were they doing? I tell you what they're doing. Folkers was on your behalf soliciting and gathering information for a cash award. Let's look at it. We've got his email right here, right over my shoulder. Volker says, I'm working on this nomination for the Dan David Award for Fauci. We need to beef up the COVID part. Do you have language in the can that you could share that delineates how we responded in new ways to COVID? He sends this to...
So, this is one of Fauci's people sending an email, right? This is his chief of staff, because if you remember right, there was a bunch of awards or whatever, and the cash prize of now $100,000, like he said. So, during all of this, in the midst of the pandemic, they're worried about money. They're worried about Dr. Fauci getting paid. That's what they're worried about. That's what this shows. And as we all know, Fauci's not answering the questions. So, but there's more. Wait for it.
Multiple federal employees. What was the Dan David Award? Do you remember, Doc?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
It was a $900,000 cash award. $900,000 cash award. And he got it.
Tax-free, by the way.
Because he used federal employees to get it. And this wasn't the only award, was it, Dr. Fauci? In fact, you applied for and received at least 8 other federal cash prizes on federal time using federal employees and federal resources. Here they are over my shoulder. Besides the Dan David Award, you've got the Partnership for Public Service, you've got the Adelson Prize, you've got the Smithsonian Award, you've got the National Academy of Medicine.
Bro, all these awards, the Dan David Prize, Partnership of Public Services of America, y'all can read it. This is wild. That a man that America is supposed to trust to make the right decisions is sitting here having his staff with federal time, federal employees, email, whatever, lobbying and asking ways to help him get all these awards with all these cash prizes. Or cash prizes, not prices, sorry. That is wild to me. That is fucking wild to me. And this is why I say, do your own research. If you believe what's being said, cool. I'm not here to judge you. But just do your own research if something like this ever happens again. And God willing, it doesn't. Just do your own research. That's all I want.
Award. You got the CDC Foundation. In fact, you turned your staff into a full-time application machine. You actually wrote to people and said, do you think maybe I'd qualify? And you got cash for all of this. And it wasn't just 1 or 2 employees, was it? In fact, you used 8 separate federal employees on federal time using federal resources to solicit cash awards. Isn't that true?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Here they are right over my shoulder. Here's all of them. The people that you use, federal employees.
So these are 8 employees he used to do his lobbying. These 8 people right here. They all worked for him. And they were doing his lobbying to get him a federal prize or federal money. Real quick, Dark Knight Batman. So this is the cafe guy. Yep, that's me. What's up, bro? Does the jab make people into zombies? My family said no. September, my mom and sister. We did not. It doesn't. So here's the problem, right? And the argument is the American people, let me back up. The argument they have is the American people were lied to. There was fear mongering, and they were listening to a man that basically changed up, safety procedures, changed up how we should go about carrying our lives, right? And the CDC was listening to Dr. Fauci because he was the number one dude for all this shit. And everyone was supposed to listen to him when it came to this, right? But in the background, he was worried about himself, his self-image, his celebrity status, so to speak, right? Now, the main argument here is Operation Warp Speed, how fast it came out. You had clinical trials not being thorough enough and the government rushing people to go get this thing, right? The vaccine or whatever. So it's the debate of should people have gotten it, should they not have? Now, again, I'm not here to determine whether people should or shouldn't. I'm not here to determine that. Me and my wife made our decision, and that's all I can really say, right? When I told y'all the reasons we made our decision. And everyone that got it did it for their own sake. But all I want is to people know that information that came out, so that way if they want to go research their own, they can go research it. And I just want people to understand sometimes it's smoke and mirrors, right? The term people like to use is smoke and mirrors, right? It's like, you see something, but behind that smoke, There's some other shit happening, right? And I like to use the LCU shit, right? You see what's happening in front of the camera, but you don't see what's going on behind the scenes. That's what happened here. So let's continue.
So that you could go and get cash money. And the most hilarious part is that you weren't content to even dragoon them into applying for all of these cash awards. You then had them go out to the ethics agencies and ethics watchdogs and demand that you be able to get the money. That's right. We've got it in your emails. Your staff and employees on federal time, using federal resources, being paid with federal dollars, are soliciting cash for you. And then they're turning around and saying to the agency, we don't want just an answer. We want to get to yes, because Fauci wants the money. He wants.
Tony's assistant routinely tells the sponsors as soon as the NIAID, I'm sorry, with letters, is notified that Tony is Fauci, Anthony is Tony. Tony's an award recipient that the cash prizes need heightened review, and we don't want to say no. We want to try and get to yes. Yes takes time. So this is what people were telling his people, right? Like, just because of all this shit happening, like you can't push us because the award is whatever. It should go to people that deserve it, right? And Fauci's people are pushing him to get it because of all his accolades. But it's like, fuck the award. We want money. We want the money. It's all about money. All about fucking money. All right, let's continue.
We want to get to yes, and yes takes time. This is your chief of staff again, using federal email to pressure the agency's own ethics people so that you could get money, so that you could get rich. And it violated the law, didn't it, Dr. Fauci? Didn't it? It violated the law, didn't it? It is a question. You can answer. Go ahead.
My man asked, is that a question? And he said, yes, that is a question. And what do you think his response is, chat? What do you think Dr. Fauci's response is to this question?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Federal law, as you very well know, prohibits the solicitation of cash awards or other personal benefits for federal employees. And it certainly prohibits using your own employees to do this. 5 CFR section 2635-205B. It says it right there in black and white. You cannot use federal resources, federal dollars, federal employees, federal offices, federal email, federal time to solicit cash awards. And you did all of it. And the worst part is thousands of people were dying while you were doing it. You were supposed to be the nation's doctor, and you're playing one on TV. But this is what you were doing with your time. Isn't that true?
Got him.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, I can see why. I can certainly see why. You know what I can't quite figure out is that why you were so obsessed with it, because you're already rich. I mean, and your scheme worked here. I mean, your net worth now is north of $12 million.
His net worth after all of this is $12 million. Fauci made out, bro. He made out. And it's just like they say with war, right? War's about money. It's about economy. People get rich off war. I can tell you right now, the amount of contractors that were out there. Look, the contract jobs in 2010, right? We were having seminars from civilian contract companies that were out there to do hazmat, right? To do hazmat, they were offering me in 2010 $150,000 tax free a year to stay or to go back, do my thing, and then if I could get on IR, right, inactive reserve or whatever, basically do a year of IRR, I could go back and make $150,000 tax free. I was like, nah, I'm good. I'm gonna go home. Literally. It's fucked up. It's so fucked up.
You got over $1 million in cash awards during COVID, during a 12-month, 24-month span during COVID. $1 million you knocked down in cash money using federal resources. Now you're worth more than $12 million. You've got a pension that in its first year paid out north of $400,000 a year. 1 million people dead, you're getting rich. 1 million people dead, you're using federal employees to get cash awards for you. 1 million people dead, and you're here taking the fifth because you don't want to admit that what really happened in all that time was a multi-month, multi-year course of self-dealing. Isn't that true, Dr. Fauci?
What do you think he's going to say?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Yeah, well, silence is admission. And here's the real thing. At the end of the day, it wasn't just about the money, really, was it? It was really about a power trip. I mean, through all of this, you want to be the most famous scientist in the world. You were so focused on getting every award and every drop of cash that you could, all because you wanted to be on TV. You wanted to be the sun god of science. You wanted to be the guy who was in charge of it all. You wanted to lambast Trump. You wanted to make sure that nobody else stole your spotlight. You wanted to be the guy. You had time to sit for InStyle magazine. Here's what you were doing with your time. You could sit for InStyle magazine.
Yep.
but you can't answer questions for the American people. You could sit for InStyle magazine, but you're here taking the fifth. You could sit for InStyle magazine.
Look at my man looking cool as shit by the pool, bro. This is all he cared about. He didn't give a shit about American people. He didn't give a shit about nothing but his celebrity status. That's my opinion. He wanted to line his fucking pockets, get some wealth, right? Get some millions of dollars underneath his belt. He wanted to pose for InStyle magazine, right? Do his thing, do his little interviews and all this other shit, get the notoriety for some bullshit. And at the same time, what's happening? There's a disaster in the world. There's a disaster in America. People are losing their lives. And look at where we're at. It's fucked up, chat. It's real fucked up.
He's going to get $1 million in cash awards. But now the cat's got your tongue. I bet he does. I tell you what, here's my conclusion from all of this. This was really all about you the whole time. Somewhere along the way, you lost your way. You may have been a good public servant at one time, I don't know. But I can tell you from reading your emails now, from looking at what you did, how you used your employees, somewhere along the line, it became all about you. You became a narcissist and a megalomaniac and a liar. And you've lied to the American people, and you've lied to this body. And you've disgraced your profession by doing it. You called yourself the most famous scientist in the world. You've done more to harm science than anybody in my lifetime. And I hope you'll go home and write that in your diary. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Shout out.
Senator Fetterman.
Thank you, Mr.
All right. So, let me see if I can, yeah. So, this is Senator Moreno. This dude goes the fuck in. I'm telling you, this dude is relentless. Let's check him out.
So, and I now see the remain back to the chair. Thank you.
Senator Moreno.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll echo Senator Johnson's comments about your opening
Shout out,
statement.
be happy.
It was dead on. Very, very well done. Mr. Fauci, do you know who David Schertler is?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Fifth Amendment of the Constitution. What does the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution say?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon
This is lawyer, by the way. This row behind him is his lawyers, just so you know.
my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
No, I'm just asking you what it says.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth
He ain't
Amendment to
answering
the
shit,
Constitution.
chat. Not a
I'll
fucking
give,
thing.
The Constitution to my aide. He'll bring it over to you so you can have it for future reference. I think it's something that every American should know what the Constitution says. Do you know who wrote the Fifth Amendment?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment of the Constitution.
So you're invoking a right that you don't know who wrote it or what it says. Is that correct?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Wow. All right, let me tell you who David Schertler is for the audience because he was ejected by the chairman. He's a high-profile criminal attorney.
So what he's talking about here is his attorney that got kicked out, right? He's about to say who his attorney is, what his attorney represents, and this kind of makes you wonder why did he hire him, right? Just to give y'all some perspective, just give y'all a little bit of a small background on what this is, right? So let's check this out.
He's represented some really great people, like Senator Bob Menendez. Maybe that's somebody who my Democrat colleagues may remember took gold bars as bribes from the Egyptians. And there's an article here in the Washington Free Beacon that talks about why you would hire a guy like David Schertler. And the comment is, if you're in deep shit, that's who you call. Do you feel like you're in deep shit?
On the advice
Do you
of
feel like
counsel,
you're
I
in deep
respectfully
shit?
decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Clearly, what you think today is that somehow you're above reproach. Somehow you feel like you don't need to be treated like a normal American. Can you do me a favor in the audience and stand up if during the time of the COVID pandemic, you were called a racist for calling the virus a Wuhan virus or the China virus? If you thought the 6-foot rule was total crap, if you thought the vaccine wasn't something that you should take, if you thought it was outrageous the way the mask policy was rolled out, if you were fired from your job for not taking that vaccine, including members of the military, if you thought closing schools was catastrophically stupid, and that you thought that during these times saying these things made you somehow a lesser human being. Dr. Fauci, can you just turn around and look at the people behind you? You're not willing to do that?
She's in uniform, too.
It's not a question. It's not a question. To your lawyer, it's not a question. It's a request. All you have to do is look up.
We all remember, right? We all remember I guess pearl clutching is the right term. Like it's, there was a lot of Chinese racism, which, I mean, that shouldn't have happened. We shouldn't classify all Chinese people because of this, right? We just shouldn't. But that was going on. People were refusing to follow the mandates. People were refusing to get the shot. People were like, no, I'm not doing this. But again, remember, this is the same side They say women have the right to, choose abortion or not. And again, I'm not arguing that. It's just the hypocrisy of it, right? Me personally, for everyone else, I'm pro-choice. For me, I'm pro-life, just to put that on the record. But I always said, bro, I feel I should have the right to do with my body what I want, right? That's what I feel. So I wasn't about to listen to the government say you have to do this because, again, of my personal experience. But, I mean, at the end of the day, a lot of foul shit happened, and it really, really, truly divided the country. And it was a bad time. It truly was a bad time, And this is why I want people to do their own research, figure out what's best for them, and do what they feel is right for themselves. Don't just listen, right? What's the saying? Don't be a follower, be a leader. You ain't got to be a leader. Just choose for yourself. That's all I want out of this. Literally all I want.
From your lawyers, and look at the people who were absolutely shamed for saying what we know now to be the truth. You can't even look at them? That's a question. Are you able to look at them? You can sit down in the audience.
So the microphones had some issues, by the way.
In Ohio, during the depth of the coronavirus pandemic, decided to go to her high school football game for her son. They hadn't been out much. The kids had been learning at school, and then the school got shut down. They hadn't really gotten much out of that education. As any parent
Shout out
knew,
Lunchbox.
that remote learning was no learning at all. But it was a Friday night. Her son wanted to go
Exactly, Beezer.
a buddy go play football. So they went to the stadium. They sat alone, far from everybody else, just a mom, a dad, a few kids. They didn't feel they needed to wear masks because it was stupid, because they were outside. They all live together. They're not near anybody. Dr. Fauci, do you know what happened to that mom and that family? That's a question.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So just so you know, what he's saying is there was a family, right, of a mom, a father, and kids, and they wanted to go to a high school football game, right? Brother survived. I believe I should be able to do with my body what I want. Ken, what's that? Gross, scraggly beard refuses to comb it. Also, that's funny. That's funny. But anyways, yeah. Fuck you, bro. So yeah, there was a family wanted to go to a high school football game. They were sitting by themselves. They weren't near anybody. They didn't wear a mask because again, they lived together. They didn't see the point. And basically, this kind of what happened. And fucking the senator asked Fauci, didn't they know what happened to him? This is what happened to him.
They were dragged out of that stadium and arrested. Those policies were put in place because you had moronic politicians that listened to the words of a megalomaniac who was more interested in having met a Kardashian than the suffering of the American people.
My bad, Chad.
And that is you. Your advice to communities like that, to idiotic politicians who enforce those rules, arrested that mom for watching a football game with her own family outside. When that story broke, I said to myself, I cannot stand idly on the side and watch this happen. It was about 6 years ago today that I decided I'm going to give up my businesses, sell them all, run for office, run for the United States Senate. Here I am sitting in front of you 6 years later saying, who the fuck do you think you were for doing that?
Got him.
It is a total disgrace what you did to this country. And if my Democrat colleagues are standing there defending you, I hope the voters of the United States of America watch the clips of every one of you doting on a guy who was more interested in being a celebrity than saving American people. I will make it my mission to make certain that every single one of those Democrats who did that will see that clip over and over and over again. Because there is no defense of what you did. You may have had a 50-plus year legacy of public service, but it ends in total and complete disgrace. So let me ask you an opportunity to answer one question. Will you apologize, just apologize, to the people who you harmed through your actions? Will you say, do you have the dignity to just say you're sorry?
What do you think he said? So, again, right, you can filter out the bullshit, like the political rhetoric that he's saying right here. You can filter all that out, right? Obviously, people did what they thought was right at the time, right? People wanted to live their own lives, and people, the idea was that they were trying to push at this time was it's not just about you, it's about everyone else. So they wanted everyone to think about everyone else and not just themselves, right? So it's one of those lines of right or wrong. There was no middle. It's either you're right or you're wrong. And again, this was a way for the government to see if they could control everyone, right? That's my personal opinion. And, people did what they feel was best for themselves, right? There was a lot. I mean, look at it, bro. Like, you had your DoorDashes, your Uber Eats, your Instacarts. You had all these apps for delivery. Some people elected to stay home and just get stuff delivered to them, right? Some people couldn't afford the extra fees and the tips and all that, so they had to go out in public and do it themselves. And, it's one of those things where people want the right to live the life that they want to live. People want the right to make the choices they want to make. Obviously, not like breaking the law, but I'm saying just live your life, right? Don't worry about me, worry about yourself. But we were in a situation where people had to worry about everybody else. They couldn't just worry about themselves. They had to worry about everybody else. So the whole idea was it put a lot of ideologies flipped upside down, right? It really, truly did. And now we're here. Now we're here. And it's all because of this man right here.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So you won't apologize to the military members who Joe Biden summarily dismissed from the military for not taking the vaccine?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the business owners that lost their business, shattered their lives, and they'll never recover?
Something else about COVID, right? Because I worked for Best Buy at the time. And I'll tell you right now, the COVID years, because Best Buy was considered an essential business, and we got hazard pay and all that shit for working. We had mandates, but I ain't gonna get into all that. If you go back and look at a lot of these companies, their public earnings, you go back to the COVID years, almost all of them were record numbers. Almost all of them were. And you know what's funny? I'll tell you this about Best Buy. I don't give a shit. The bonus structure was based on like the previous years or some shit. They literally had to eliminate looking at the COVID years for their bonus structure because it was such an outlier. And a lot of like the higher up echelon people were losing bonus money. They had to literally eliminate the COVID years, right? And another thing about a lot of like the big corporation businesses and shit, when they started monetizing getting the vaccine, I was like, hell no, I ain't doing this shit. Hell fucking no. Because you know what Best Buy was offering? $250 gift cards, extra days off, right? Like wellness days and all this other shit. They were giving so many incentives for people to do the vaccine. And you had to provide proof of it, a printed copy of your vaccination certificate. I guarantee you, the amount of tax breaks these companies got for pushing employees to get a vaccine is crazy. Crazy fucking work. I guarantee you, bro. Guarantee you.
Advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the moms who had to force their infant children, 2, 3, 4-year-olds, to put masks on and what that did and how that traumatized those kids?
That's probably a little excessive. Probably a little excessive. I mean, I don't have any kids, so I don't know. But I don't know.
Under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to the family members of the people who died because they took your advice and not only got the first vaccine, but the 5, 6 other boosters that they did not need?
Their audio.
Based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Will you apologize to that mom from Ohio for being arrested for watching a football game with her family?
Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So you didn't know who wrote the Fifth Amendment. It's James Madison. Lived in this town. I can only wonder what he would think of somebody like you invoking his writings to shield culpability for the actions that you took. It's no secret why you have to hire the biggest dirtbag attorney on the planet, because of what you did. I hope you're paying him well. And I hope that one way or the other, somewhere, sometime, you answer for your crimes.
That's it. So, all right. There's one more thing I want to show, right? One more thing. And this is some wild shit. Wild shit that came out, man. And this is wild. That's all I'm going to say. This is all I'm going to say.
People who lost loved ones during COVID and those that were denied a chance to say goodbye to their family members that were in hospitals or residing in nursing homes because of the COVID-19 protocols. Americans haven't forgotten the mandates, the adverse reactions to vaccines, the government misinformation, social media censorship, hotlines to tattle on their neighbors, the forced school closures, the tragic rise in suicides, or those businesses that were forced to close during lockdowns.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this whole thing was turning people against each other. Really. Like snitching on people, bro. Dead Score, what up, bro?
At Dead Score 2424 donated $5 to support the KCA. Remember, work was in talks about mandating the vaccine. We all walked out. The next day, it was never mentioned again.
Shout out to y'all, man. It's, again, right? It's people should make their own choices for themselves. I don't think work should mandate it. School should mandate it. No. I think people have the right to make a choice that's best for them. I don't think the government should tell people what to do with their own health. I'd never believe that. Obviously, there's like the children vaccines, but that's like years and decades of research and backup, right? For the measles and all that shit for children. Yeah, I get that. But something like this that's rushed because they paid to rush it. I'm sorry. I don't believe in it. I don't. But yeah, the COVID tip line, bro, like snitching on your fucking neighbors, the 6 feet and all that shit. I mean, again, it's up to you if you want to do that. It's up to you if you want to follow these, right? Now, me personally, out of courtesy for others, I mean, I ain't gonna lie, I did. I followed it just because, you know, I just, like, stand 6 feet away from somebody, all right, that's fine. That's not gonna hurt me. You know what I mean? Like, making sure. Ken, did you mean for this to be biased? I did not. I'm just explaining. And my personal feelings are, I told you, I'm against this. But I just want people to do their own research. That's all I'm saying. And if people felt the need that they should have got the vaccine, they should have followed certain protocols, and that's fine. That's within their right. I'm not here to negate any of that. I just believe people should have the right to make their own choice. And I am in the camp of, I didn't get it. I didn't feel I needed it. And I explained why. My wife, I explained why she didn't. And that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. And we shouldn't always trust the government to tell us how to live our lives. That's my main point. That is truly my main point. But it's not supposed to be biased in any kind of way towards the vaccine itself. This is more against the government telling people how to live their life. That's what I'm against. And forcing people to make decisions and hurting their livelihoods or hurting their families, hurting their daily lives if they don't get a shot that the government says you have to get. That's what I'm against. That's all. Let's continue.
Americans haven't forgotten the hundreds of billions of dollars spent by taxpayers for COVID relief, stolen by fraudsters who bought Rolls Royces and yachts. These were taxpayer dollars. Americans have lost trust in science and government after the COVID response, trust which will be incredibly difficult for us to gain back. Dr. Fauci, you said that the science was evolving and that your recommendations evolved with it. But Americans remember you as the public face of the coronavirus response. As one of the nation's most trusted voices, you urged policies you said were absolutely necessary, even when those policies came at an enormous human and economic cost. And Americans deserve answers about reports that you may have worked with others to pressure the president into adopting the slow the spread strategy, and why you later sought an unconditional pardon for crimes you may have committed dating back to 2014. Dr. Fauci, in 2022, you had a taxpayer-funded salary of $480,000 a year. You were, in fact, the highest paid federal employee in the entire federal government.
Damn. See, that's the thing, right? Oh, Phantom, what up, buddy?
At Phantom_mutation donated $10 to support the KCA. I remember when they tried to mandate it for the schools, but love you being able to speak your mind. Keep up the great content, sir.
Thank you, Phantom.
Now quit posting pictures of me LMFAO. Love you, bro.
Love you too, Phantom. If y'all don't know, right? If you're not in the LCU, I got a Phantom. I love you, buddy. I love you. we gotta talk about this, sir. We have to talk. We gotta talk about that. All right. No, I appreciate you, buddy. Thank you, Phantom. I appreciate you. But yeah, it's. I know this is coming across as like hate. This is coming across as like political and all that. It's not. It's truly not. When it comes to politics, there's no right or wrong answer. Both sides are fucking corrupt as shit. Both sides, have their pros and cons, right? Don't get me wrong. But I want people to think for themselves and not just follow. That's all this is. Literally all this is. All right, let's continue.
Even making more than the NIH director and the president of the United States.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about. This motherfucker was making more money than any other federal employee out there. You think he didn't think he had some type of power? And whenever he put out some fucking statement, they went on the news or went on fucking social media, whatever you want to call it, and was trying to force people. You talk about a fucking power trip. You knew this dude had a power trip. 100% he had a damn power trip. And normally when people at the top like that, they're going to do whatever they can to stay in power. They're going to do whatever they can to keep the riches coming. That's just human nature at that level. You can go back in history and look at the great dictators. I'm not saying he's a dictator, but you can look at like examples of people at the top and not wanting to give up power, not wanting to give up any little morsel of control they have, right? This is natural. It happens. Let's continue.
According to now public documents, that was due in large part to your work on biodefense. Unreported is how NIAID spent over $1 billion from 2009 to 2026 in biodefense and influenza federal contracts and subcontracts. My office uncovered records on usaspending.gov that show from 2015 to 2020, NIAID paid out $515,418 in subcontracts to Harbin Veterinary Institute in Harbin, China, including $100,000 a few days after it opened a BSL-4 biolab in 2018. That very same institute was criticized for doing gain-of-function bird flu research in 2013, and yet you were funding them for years after that, sending U.S. taxpayer dollars to China. These contracts, which we also trace to NIAID, show U.S. taxpayers funded gain-of-function researchers in the Netherlands and in Wisconsin, funding the same folks whose controversial work led President Obama to pause this exact type of dangerous pandemic research. Dr. Fauci, did you know that the NIH's billion-dollar Sears contract programs were funding gain-of-function researchers in China, the U.S., and in the Netherlands?
Now, remember, gain-of-function, you're manipulating. You're manipulating viruses and bacteria and diseases to get to the point of infecting humans, right? That's what gain of function is. So America was sending tax dollars to China, right? One of our biggest enemies, even though whatever, we don't get into all of that. And here and in the Netherlands to do research on this thing, right? People can go do their own research and see it. The U.S. was funding it, right? It's just fucked up in my opinion. It's truly fucked up. Rocky BB, I know most of y'all don't care, but people like y'all are why my kid won't go to school until he could get vaccinated and he'll never get to experience this is my normal life with his mom. I'm sorry to hear that. I really, truly am. And it's sad. It truly is sad, Rocky. I'm sorry. I really am. And there's no right. It's people are going to live their life and people don't care about the next person. I mean, you can go out in public and see people are on their phones. There's no situational awareness. People like driving, right? There's drivers just not paying attention on the road. People are in their own little worlds. They don't care about nobody else outside of them. It's just a fact, and it sucks, but it's just a fact, right? And when this happened, it did a huge divide into the country, right? Security versus privacy. We talked about that. It sucks. It's just the truth, and I'm sorry. It sucks, and I'm sorry. Let's continue.
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, Dr. Deborah Birx wrote in her book that you...
That's not, it's gaining a function that could be infecting humans. Well, the way I understand it is they're trying to manipulate it so that way when it affects humans, it can improve on vaccines and all this other shit. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
You and President Obama's former CDC director were at a Saturday, March 14th, 2020 meeting at her home 2 days before the president announced his 15 days to slow the spread effort. Your now released diary said the meeting was a week before that. Dr. Birx said you all were trying to trap the president into having no other options. She wrote, your plan was to, quote, block any of the president's escape routes. So, quote, he'd have no choice but to agree to our flatten the curve measures. Yes or no, Dr. Fauci, did you try to block or trap President Trump into the slow the spread, flatten the curve measures in March 2020?
On the advice of counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
So, in his personal diary, right, this shit happened a week prior than these meetings in the stop the spread, which when they said 15 days of like the quarantine and like all that other shit, I understood it at the time. I truly, truly did. Like, all right, well, whatever. But again, people are going to live their lives. People are not going to give a fuck. And let's just be honest, right? How much of America truly follows the news or follows what they say? Not a lot. A lot of people don't follow it. They're more worried about TikTok and Twitter and all this other shit, what's happening with celebrities. A lot of people don't give a shit what's happening in the world. It's just the truth. And when this shit happened, a lot of people, you know, the anti-government people, they're like, no, I'm going to go outside and do what the fuck I want, right? A lot of that happened too. It's just the nature of people. Again, they're in their own little box. They don't care what's happening outside of them except their own little box. It's just a fact, and it sucks. Rocky, Ken, then tell me you don't care about unborn babies. Of course I care about unborn babies. That's why my wife didn't get vaccinated. Of course I care. Like, it is what it is. But, you know, it's people's own little box. That's all it is.
When the COVID-19 virus broke out in Wuhan, China, you, Dr. Fauci, knew pretty much right away that NIH had funded Chinese labs, including those doing coronavirus research. There's email traffic from early January 2020 where your staff was flagging for you that NIH funded coronavirus research at the Wuhan lab through EcoHealth Alliance. Yet few Americans knew we funded the Wuhan lab because the funding went through a sub-award and was not reported to the public database like usaspending.gov as it should have been. Also, EcoHealth violated federal law by failing to report in its research papers how much taxpayer funding it spent on that research. At my request, the Government Accountability Office helped track down that $1.4 million of U.S. taxpayer money that was sent to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, both by you, Dr. Fauci, and through USAID. But first, it passed through EcoHealth Alliance, which I helped to get defunded through the NDAA. Dr. Fauci, did you intentionally use subaward funding to obscure NIH funding of Chinese biolabs and coronavirus research?
What is he going to say?
Counsel, I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
NIAID awarded multi-million-dollar grants to a number of scientists shortly after they wrote publicly in the Proximal Origins paper that the COVID virus likely came from nature. The documents Chairman Paul released last week show in private, those same scientists were much more open to the virus being from a lab. In 2023, Representative Jordan insinuated that you basically gave a $9 million bribe in the form of an NIH grant to NIH-funded virologists to say the virus likely was from nature.
So that was a big-ass argument back then, if y'all don't remember that. Was it created in a lab? Because I remember they were talking about that they were doing some type of experiments or research and that it got loose somehow, right? Or someone got infected and it carried out, right? I remember when the first person got infected in the United States because they were on a work trip in China, right? I'm not saying that, but it's just the truth. That's what happened. So there was that whole big debate and argument, but the government was trying to focus and the news was trying to focus on how to combat this thing. They didn't give a fuck about the origins at the time. They truly didn't. They knew it was just killing people. Now, y'all are talking about the mask in chat. I wore a mask in public because I'm like, if I can just wear a mask and not get fucking vaccinated, fine. If I got to stay away from 6 feet from people and wear a mask and not get vaccinated, fine, I'll do that because I had shit I needed to do. And a lot of businesses weren't allowing people in unless they were wearing a mask. They had little stickers on the floor, right, of like the 6 feet, which it really wasn't 6 feet, but you know, to separate people like in the diagonal. And then like in the elevators, you had to stand in the corners, right? Remember that? But you know, it's just one of those things. And some people continue to wear masks to this day, and that's their own prerogative, right? Doesn't affect my life. You wear your mask, whatever you want to do. But I mean, at the end of the day, like I said before, many, many times, people are going to focus on their own lives and what's best for them. They don't care about other people. It's just a fact, and it sucks. But what are you going to do?
Dr. Fauci, yes or no, did you reward the Proximal Origin authors by giving them NIAID grants or contracts?
I decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Dr. Fauci, we have learned that U.S. coronavirus researchers at UNC shipped, quote, humanized or transgenic mice to China by around 2017 for use in their dangerous coronavirus work. Under your NIAID coronavirus, researchers also used aborted baby.
All right, this is the part. Now, this is sick. in my opinion. Now, I don't know much about science. I don't know much about research. This is some sick shit. And according to her, they have evidence of this, right? If this is true, this is fucked up. This is truly fucked up. I'm gonna back up just a hair, so we can get the full, or y'all can get the full fucking story. All right, come on, there we go. All right, listen.
The coronavirus researchers also used aborted baby body parts in mice research, and taxpayers paid for them to do that. NIH-funded coronavirus researcher Dr. Ralph Barrick and his colleagues at UNC put parts of livers, thymuses, and chunks of human fetal lung that they got from aborted, almost 5-month-old human babies. They put those parts in their research mice. They disgustingly named them BLT-L mice and wrote they had created a, quote, sandwich of aborted body parts in the mice. Get it, folks? BLT. A BLT.
That's fucked up. That is so fucked up, right? Now, we're not going to talk about abortion because this is not about abortion. What we're talking about is the act was done and they used the body, parts of the body, right, in their research with mice. That is so fucked up. And just, yeah, I have no words, bro.
BLT sandwich. Your RML lab employees in Montana also ordered and used aborted baby body parts in their taxpayer-funded research. And emails show how they plan to use those mice for post-COVID work. And
1 second.
At Rocky_BB donated $5 to support the KCA. Can I apologize? That about unborn babies was general, not directed at you specifically. I know and understand you care about unborn babies sincerely.
No, you're good, Rocky. I know. Look, this is a very polarizing topic. I know that. And I know that this is a topic that people individually to themselves have dealt differently. I got, 15 people in chat. All 15 of y'all dealt with COVID differently. You had different circumstances behind it. You had different issues behind it. And I'm very sympathetic to all of that. I truly am. I'm just talking about in the general sense of America, right? And again, all this shit happened, and a lot of shit was happening behind the curtain people didn't know. And like I said, I just want people to do their own research before they just follow. That's all I want, right? And like yeah, you get what I'm saying. I'm sorry, but yeah, it's just sad. It's all just fucking sad. And I hate it came to this. I hate that this happened and we saw what happened in the world and what happened in America behind the curtain and all that shit. It's fucked up. It's real fucked up. Sometimes we use dark humor to move through difficult situations. 100% Rocky. I mean, I'm all about dark humor, especially in fucked up, because sometimes if you're in a really bad place mentally, dark humor, right, of something else that's fucked up makes you laugh. But it's the truth. Let's continue.
NIH funded putting aborted babies' fingers and scalps off the heads of aborted babies and putting them into the backs of research mice. The scalps later grew fine baby hair in the mice. They even included those disgusting photos in their research paper that you funded. Not all of those were research on coronaviruses, but some were. Thankfully, the current NIH director has said no more of this. Dr. Fauci, yes or no? Do you think that human aborted parts should be put into mice for coronavirus research?
And he's not going to answer.
I respectfully decline to answer based upon my rights under the Fifth Amendment to the Constitution.
Mr. Chairman, would you direct the witness to answer the questions that we have been asking?
He probably would if he was here, but I can direct it. But no, I think we understand his answer.
We do understand that. Americans are asking for accountability, Dr. Fauci, and your silence is very telling. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Moody.
All right. So we're going to close it there, right? I know this looked like a smear campaign. This looked like whatever, but this is just stuff that came out, right? This is just stuff that came out, and I want people to know. I truly want people to know, right? But at the end of the day, people are going to make their own choices. People are going to make decisions that's best for them. But we have to remember, people don't care about you. When I say you, I mean the general sense of you. People don't care about what other people are going through. People don't care about other people's lives. They're worried about themselves. And that's why people just need to make the right choice for them. And getting mad at others isn't going to do anything but cause hostility. And people can argue educational points. They can argue their family. They can argue whatever. Others are not going to care. It's just the truth. So at the end of the day, do your own research. Do what's best for you. But don't just follow. If you hear something, question it, right? Question why they made these decisions. Question what led them to these decisions and if it's accurate. Question, if I do this, is this going to be the best thing for me? That's all you can really do. And at the end of the day, as long as you know you did the right thing by you and your family, you can lay your head down at night and rest, right? Sleep peacefully. Thank you all for joining the stream. I greatly appreciate all of you guys. Again, all this is public. If you want to go back and watch it, you can. If you want to go back and read the diary, you can. If you want to go back and look at the science behind it all, you can, right? It's all public information. And hopefully we all learned something today. Hopefully we understand, with hindsight, that maybe some shit was a little overbearing. Maybe some stuff was a little much. But it's all about the bigger picture, right? It's all about the bigger picture. Hope you have a great rest of your day. And we'll see you in the next one. Y'all take care, everybody. Peace. Actually, I should redirect to someone. Should I redirect to somebody? Who's live right now? Guys, W's in chat if I should redirect to somebody. Let me know. W's in chat. Should I redirect to somebody? All 10 of you. Fuck it. I'm not. Y'all take care.